turn and face this way. So we have each month, we have nominations for our core value awards in the classroom. August, our core value award was perseverance. Perseverance is persisting in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. So the teachers were asked to nominate a student who demonstrate, or a student, excuse me, who demonstrate this core value. We then represent that student with a certificate, an award, a little coupon to Chick-fil-A, and then primarily they get to have some lunch with me, which makes it exciting. And then we then take those students' names and we send them to our enhancement teachers, and they select our core value award winner for the month. So for the primary academy, for our core value for perseverance, she is not here with us, but it's Aria Hope. She is a first grader in Miss Atkinson's homeroom. She was selected for the Perseverance Award because she is a wonderful student that does not let limitations hold her back. She has a great attitude and works hard at everything she does. So we are very proud of Aria, one of our first graders. For September, the core value award was respect. Respect can be earned and can be described as a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. Respect can also be given, as such would be described, as due to regard for the feelings, wishes, rights, or traditions of others. Today's honorees reflect both of those attributes. For the primary academy, we have Amy Hamilton Gregory. She is a kindergartner in Miss Hodges' homeroom. She has been selected for the Respect Award because she has been respectful in class and to other students. She also sets a good example for her class. So this is Ava. We're going
And the Perseverance Award for the Intermediate Academy goes to a new student to Noose, JJ Foley. He's an 8th grader in Miss Simon's homeroom. JJ is new to Noose Charter, but he has demonstrated great perseverance in handling a new school, new classmates, new classes, all with tremendous positivity. JJ, come on up.
You can come.
Okay, go over
You
there.
want to come stay next to me?
Never mind.
Don't worry, buddy.
And for respect, Miss Kaylee Foy is an 8th grader also in Miss Simons' room. Kaylee is respectful. She is considerate to her teachers and to her classmates. She demonstrates respect to the fullest at Noose Charter School and to our community. She jumps in wherever she is needed, and she will help whatever needs need to be met. Kaylee, congratulations. Miss Nowinski.
Poor Kaylee.
Oh, hold yourself. There you go. Come on, you gotta see. This is the positivity that we were talking about with JJ.
Help me.
The Senior Academy recipient is Bailey Smith. Bailey Smith is in the 10th grade and is in Miss Jeffers' homeroom. Bailey was selected as the recipient of the Respect Award because she is consistently polite every day and has a pleasant smile. She is an inspiration daily. Miss Bailey. Oh, here it is. So please join me in congratulating all of our Respect Core Value Award honorees. And perseverance, sorry. Thank you for joining us this evening as we share these important recognitions for our student and their demonstration of the Noose Charter core values. We invite you to stay for the meeting. In addition, several of our board members are here and would like to offer their personal congratulations to tonight's honorees. And again, thank you for your attendance at tonight's award ceremony.
Yay.
On behalf of the Board of Trustees and News Charter School, we'd like to congratulate all of our awesome students. Keep up the good work. Those are core values that are very important and will certainly take you far in life. So I appreciate all the smiles. I appreciate you guys being great students. And on behalf of all of us, congratulations.
We've got you all here, we're good.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to call the October News Charter School Board of Directors meeting to order. As a conflict of interest reminder, board members are reminded that it's our duty to avoid conflicts of interest in the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the board. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Welcome, everyone. So if you take a moment to look over the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, the agenda has been accepted. We don't have anyone listed for public comment. This is the public comment time. Okay, thank you. Now if we would review our board minutes from last month, if you have not done so, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the board minutes.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion passed. Our booster club may, yay! Welcome. We don't have our microphones tonight, everyone, so please speak up so our staff can properly take minutes, as well as Ms. Booker.
I'm Lena Smith, president of Athletic Booster Club. Quick update, membership for this year is on target with last year. Concession sales so far for the volleyball season are working well. We're looking forward to the basketball season because that's our busiest season, especially in concessions. We are working with Lori to be part of the fall festival. Booster Club will be running the concession stand, and then of course you all know we have the Cow Patty Bingo as well. We received approval for the Booster Bazaar, so that information is going out to vendors so that hopefully we can make that successful. And then the last thing I have is that we are going to hold our next meeting this Thursday. It's been moved just because of sports calendars. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Smith, where is the Booster Club meeting held?
Oh, sorry, it's going to be in the gym at 7 p.m.
Okay, and now we'd like to welcome Talia. As our SGA president. This is her first meeting with us, so we're excited to have you, and we look forward to receiving information from the SGA and all the good stuff I know you guys are doing. So welcome.
Hi. Can I stand up there?
Wherever you're most comfortable, you can stay there.
Okay.
But you have to project.
Okay.
Use our teacher voice.
Hi, my name is Talia, president of SGA, as you just heard. So, so far, SGA has had an amazing start to the new year. In the past, we weren't able to implement our homeroom reps as much, but this year, since we have an actual meeting time, we meet every other Friday, we've really been able to plan some really encouraging and fun events for the school year. So at our first meeting, we set some goals for ourselves just as far as what we want to do for the school in the upcoming school year. So some students, we felt as though SGA was only used for prom and homecoming, but we all know that's not how we want SGA, our student body, our student government to be portrayed as, and so we definitely didn't want to continue to be portrayed as that. So this year we made our own little vision board, I guess you want to say. So as the members of SGA, it is our job as student ambassadors to make sure that we show not only ourselves, but make sure we have something for our students to show school spirit. So this year we got right away on our first community service project, which is now in wraps. Next Thursday on Halloween, October 31st, we will be hosting our, we've done it before, but our first for right now, Powder Puff, and we're hoping to make it annual. The game will be in the gym in Cougar time, and it's really for the students to just have fun. You know, the school is what you make it. So if you want to have a boring school, then there's no school spirit. So we really want to make sure we have a fun school as well as academics, but make sure that the students are able to have fun as well. So the players, the people involved with the students, of course, the players, coaches, cheerleaders, and the crowd. And it's pretty much right now, it's just senior academy, but we also included the 8th graders so they can get a feel of what their high school will be like the next coming year. And they're not participating, and they're just watching. They're just in the audience. So we knew that there was some conflicting stuff with athletes and their sports after school, so we decided to do it during Cougar time. That was our reasoning behind that. And as far as fundraising and getting into the game, we decided why not get back into our school. So we know that the school takes non-perishable and cans for families who can't necessarily afford to bring their kids lunch. So we decided to do a canned food non-perishable drive. And so the payment would be for the audience who wants to watch 2 cans or non-perishables, so like chips or anything like that, they can bring. And then for the players, it's only 1. So we'll be collecting those all of next week. We'll have a box out here in the front just to really promote it. If you see around the school, there's tons of signs and posters and all that, because we really want to make sure we promote this and give back to the students and the kids in our community. And we're very excited for this year and can't wait to do a whole lot more of school spirit things and other community service events. So thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, it's very detailed. And we've been having some very interesting discussions in some committees and groups. And so since SGA wants to be more involved, would you be interested as a whole in participating in some of those discussions on behalf of students? So now that you have a dedicated meeting time, every other Friday, you said?
Yes.
At what time?
It's at 12:50.
12:50.
After lunch, yes.
Okay. That you might invite us to learn more about the board, as well as us ask you some key questions about your school.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Who's giving the director's report? You all looked a little panicked, like no one had made that decision.
So, I know y'all have a paper copy. This is my first board meeting. I'm Nikki Nowinski, Senior Academy Leader, if you don't know who I am. And so I trust we're just kind of going through this. The first part talks about excellence in academics. There is a NCS School Accountability Report in your handouts. It's a report that will be posted to our school website. It's been shared with the academic committee and school improvement team. This report will be produced annually after release of all relevant school performance data each year. Similar reports are being prepared for previous school years so that we can see some user-friendly trend analysis along the way. And I believe highlights from the 18-19 school performance were shared during the September 4th meeting. K2 excitingly successfully used competency-based reporting methods for their first quarter grades. So that's exciting news. I know they had some great conversations about what grade level competency was, so that's exciting to hear. Senior Academy has established a master schedule committee focused on making recommendations for optimizing our student learning and access through the master schedule. We had our first meeting last Wednesday. We are focusing first and foremost on senior and freshman seminars and trying to
do a continuum of seminars, if you will, from 8th through 12th grade. So we're meeting again tomorrow night, and we'll be presenting our plan to the Academic Affairs Committee on Thursday. And testing season has begun. So North Carolina check-ins were completed this week. I think they're all complete. PSAT has been happening. Pre-ACT for 10th grade is happening, I believe, next week. For culture, always special thanks and words of encouragement to our teachers as they put into action this year's instructional goals. We've created a high-performance culture at NCS, and we presented that at our last professional development day. October is also anti-bullying month, so we've had some assemblies related to that. This week is college application week. If I'm not supposed to be reading this all, please stop me. Next week is Red Ribbon Week, and so each day we have some really fun things for students to do. The core value for October is teamwork, and awards for homeroom honorees will be distributed next week. We have our book fair going on right now. It's running through October 25th from 8 to 4.
8:30 to 4:30.
8:30 to 4:30 and it's up. That's
Yeah.
early. Our fall athletic season is wrapping up this week, I believe, or soon. Cross country came home with first place finishes for boys and girls at their last meet. Middle school boys soccer will host their 8th grade night and final game of the season tomorrow. Middle school volleyball will have their 8th grade night and final season game tomorrow. High school cross country will participate in their conference meet this week. And several athletes have already qualified for regionals. The high school boys soccer team had a big win against top-ranked Falls Lake last week, and seeding for the state playoffs will be announced beginning of November. High school volleyball has conference tournament play this week. That's why Ms. Pulliam isn't here tonight, because they did win last night. It was a great game, and they're playing tonight as well. In November, we have Indigenous Peoples Month, drama workshops, and auditions for Matilda. For community culture update, there's continued partnership with Triangle East Chamber of Commerce for JoCo Works. This is an industry-led collaborative supported by education, business, civic, and government partners that were created to meet the Johnston County workforce needs of the future. This will culminate in a curriculum and experience-based career exposition for 8th grade students on November 14th and 15th at Johnston Community College. Parent ambassadors have been very helpful in getting more parent volunteers to our campus to help with students during Cougar time. We continue our partnership with Johnston County artists in the schools. Was it yesterday? We had The Beast here. It was a music ensemble for our Intermediate Academy. And we're looking forward to having more artists in November, December, and March for the rest of our students. Miss Jerry Roth, we want to thank her tremendously for her commitment and support of this program over the last 12 years. I watched The Beast the other day. It was an amazing performance, and the Intermediate Academy kids had a great time, and I think they learned quite a bit about the arts that day. JCC Mobile Librarian will be on campus this week to help our CCP students learn about resources available through JCC. Triple S has invited our Senior Academy students to join them on October 28th for a college fair. Very excited about that. And JCC staff will be and has been on campus, or they will be on campus following October 28th to help with FAFSA forms. JCC staff has also been on campus quite a bit lately to help our kids apply and enroll for classes for JCC. In operations, enrollment update. Our target for this year was 945. As of 10/21, we had 934, and our ADM is currently calculating at 942. We have our current wait list numbers listed here.
Can I just interrupt you for a
Yeah.
second? I don't know if you have to read everything, but.
Yeah, I don't know. I have
I just want, can we get like a 3-year graph of our wait list numbers?
There is.
Yeah, so that, I mean, I think
that part of that
we
report?
really need to, and we talked about this a tiny bit at academic affairs, but we really need to start watching our enrollment trends. And so just, in and of itself, it's information, but we really need to see, is it on an upward or downward decline in terms of the wait list? So that's one of the,
Absolutely.
okay, thank you.
Real quick, on the enroll or Brad or Amanda, it says 934 as of 10/21. Is that 934, is that down because the wait list numbers show that there's people still on the wait list and they've just not been contacted and accepted, or?
We overstaffed to start the year. We filled to a max capacity, but not ideal capacity.
Right.
So we will lose a few students as we settle at what's best in the classroom.
Yeah. And so what did we set budget on? Do you remember?
We set budget at 945. The ADM has been set now at 942. That won't change.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if we had anybody now.
Right.
That's what the only thing that was affecting local dollars.
Where would you like me to go next?
Staffing, I guess.
Staffing update, we have 92 full-time positions, 4 vacancies, which includes the executive director position. We are continuing our recruitment and screening for 7th grade math and Spanish. We do have long-term coverage plans in there right now for both positions, and so we're continuing to look for applications and qualified people for that. We have included, did we do that, Amanda? The retention report?
There's a retention report, it's the last one, probably here.
So there's an employee retention report based on an audit of the last 3 years in your handouts. Ms. Heifel, thanks for preparing that, researching and compiling this information. If you have any questions, we can direct them towards her.
I'd like to use this time to thank also Ms. Deborah Hope. She is our HR consultant that we contracted with this year, and she assisted in compiling and building these reports.
Thank you.
General operations, the budget from the state has still yet to be approved by the legislature and governor. The roadway construction continues along Booker Dairy and Kelly Drive. Hopefully that will be done spring of 2020 completely. It's been going on for a while. Update, as part of improvements, sidewalks were installed along Kelly Drive and sidewalk markings are completed. School year calendar included 47.5 hours above the 1,025 hours required by the state, so we have 34.5 hours in excess of the state requirement at this time. I believe that was all on the executive director.
Thank you so much. Any questions?
So Nikki, one thing, I know y'all, I don't expect you to have the answer to this, but I'm just asking so that for future, whenever you look at the draws, as far as students and that type of thing, you can see big, pieces of the pie, for lack of a better word, in here. Just want to make sure that we are finding out, asking those families, doing sort of like an exit type interview, because that is a concern. And then it seems to be happening in specific grades whenever they're switching. I get middle school, high school, but there's some lower grades also that's going on. The other thing is whenever I look through the data and I see, as far as employees, we should be doing the same thing with that. Whenever there's 53.9% turnover rate, that's always a major, red flag there. So if we could prepare something, I don't expect you to have an answer here, but I'm just saying in the future. So we know, we can get a good feel of what's going on. Okay.
Mr. Taylor, I would say that in the lottery report,
Yep.
you'll see some of the responses as to common reasons for declining seats and for withdrawing.
Yep.
Sadly, sometimes those families, when they do withdraw, even when we reach out, Ms. McFall reaches out, tries to find where are they going, why are they leaving, and sadly, oftentimes they do good to let us know they've gone. Or
Right.
they've left. They don't want to talk to us at whatever point if they've left. So we'll continue to try to
I just think it's important to make the effort.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'm sorry, can I just add to the percent that you just mentioned, Robbie, the 53.9% overall turnover rate? Is that just, it looks to me like we've just added the annual turnover rate from 2016 to 2020.
4 years.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that, I just want to make sure if we're making that a public number, that we recognize that that doesn't mean that we've had over half of our staff
Yeah.
leaving over the last 4 or 5 years. It's just adding up the annual, the total number. So I just, especially since we read that number out loud, I just want to make sure that we're clear that that number doesn't really represent what it sounds like it might represent.
It's not an average.
It's not, yeah, it's not an average of, right,
4
right.
years, we have another half.
But it could be the same position.
Right, that's what,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, like,
Oh,
it's not a 53% per year kind of thing,
Yeah,
and
and
it's
it-
certainly not over half, and, you know.
Well, in the table above it, right, it was 7, 17, 23.
Right, right. And the majority of those have had 3 years or less service. So, again, I'm not saying that, I appreciate the numbers, I just want to make sure that if, as we say that we're clear what that is and what it isn't.
And I wonder how that compares to the average.
Right.
And I'd be curious to know too, in this 2018-2019 year where we have the highest turnover rate, whether those are, the majority of those are folks with 1 to 3 years experience. I don't know if you could.
You mean the 15 that are shown?
Correct. Year to date.
Yeah.
Well, and they're 9 that
They're
are less
probably,
than a
they
year.
might be
So there's
across years.
24
Yeah.
total.
They were just,
I'm just curious.
so, but I think this is good. This is, obviously information that we haven't had before, so we appreciate that. And I think now then, as with all data, what do you do with the data? How does it inform you to do things differently? What do you keep doing? What do you stop doing? And so forth. So that will be the next part of this, is getting some real analysis on how we may want to change or not change how we do things.
And when we release something like this, probably we should take the confidential further off of it. And,
Yes.
so.
Okay. Thank you. Nikki, welcome. Good job. Yes.
Nikki,
Oh,
I
Ann?
have one other question.
Yes.
On the first page where you mentioned there's a master schedule committee focused on the prioritization. Is, as part of that, we've talked a number of times about the graduation credit requirement. Is that being discussed within that committee?
Yes, yes, and our first wave of discussions is the senior freshman seminar, that progression. Second on our list is to look at spring semester master schedule, just to make sure that there are some things that make sense. We have some class numbers that are very low, and so do we want to consolidate that? And then the biggest project will be for 2021, looking at that master schedule, just so we can realign some things, make sure that we're staffing effectively and using our building resources to our maximum capacity and what makes sense for kids. But we are certainly going to entertain the credit.
Yeah, it's just something we need to pay attention to if we need some recommendations for changes to the charter around the graduation requirement number. We need to figure out a timing from a board development committee perspective, if there needs to be basically changes to the charter have to be proposed at Office of Charter Schools. So we would have to know that sooner or later. And I don't know what the timing for that would be if the committee was to come with that recommendation. Just make a note of that.
Okay, I'll find out what the timing is so we can make sure we get that done in time.
The other thing that we absolutely need to have a definite date on is our reaffirmation through advanced ed. Because it was like, I've heard different times, and that's a lot of prep work to do your accreditation, so.
Yeah.
We need to definitely confirm, especially because the board has always, last time the board had a lot of stuff we had to do in preparation, as well as meeting with the committee. So I know I need that on my calendar, or, if you want me to show up. I'm just saying, it's getting a little jammed. Okay, thank you very much.
I did have a question about senior. I've had a lot of parents ask questions about, Are you considering changing senior seminar from the 12th grade year at all? Or
So-
keeping it there? Most of the comments were that it was very valuable during the senior year and they'd like to keep it there. Is
Yes.
that the thought process?
Yes, so what we've worked on last week, and we're going to solidify tomorrow, is an 8th through 12th grade progression of areas of need that we feel like each grade level individually needs as they go. So you have an 8th grade focus, a 9th grade, so freshman seminar, would still be there, but there would be a sophomore year focus, what we call it, we haven't decided that yet, but there will be specific targeted skills that we want kids to know during those years. So it's an 8th through 12th grade progression so that the middle schoolers can get ready for high school. The high schoolers that just come in will get some solid skills to make them successful in high school. And then as you go through, it gets more college and career focused as they go through. So we have something planned for 8th through 12th grade each year, focused on something different.
And I think it's important to know that when we have committee meetings with visitors, that, we're talking freely on ideas, it doesn't necessarily mean, and so we do need to be careful that just because we start discussing something, that doesn't turn it into that's what we're going to do. It's just a discussion that will be properly vetted and presented to the board. So, because we really don't want a lot of distractions to take us in different directions based on just, some brainstorming, and we've done a lot of that in academic affairs on different ideas and so forth.
Yes. So we're trying to streamline that and get something solid so it makes sense for our kids, really.
And because it's a board committee, that will always be presented to the board. Okay, so executive committee, our last meeting was to discuss with Ms. Pulliam her resignation and a plan going forward for the naming of an interim. And so we had a discussion about that and all the things asked of Ms. Pulliam she has been working on, and that our selection of a interim is moving well towards securing someone. And so last Friday was the last deadline for our board to present any candidates they wanted for consideration. We'll be discussing that in closed session as it is a personnel matter. And then we will move on doing interviews if we have more than one candidate. I will confidently say we may not have someone November 1st or the next day, but I'm confident that we will get someone shortly thereafter. And so we will plan to try to put a broader communication plan out to the community when we finalize all the details. So a lot of work, just, we can't take place via email. So we have to wait to our once a month meeting to solidify some things. So let's go into the rest of our standing committees. Academic affairs, we had a great meeting. Thank you, ladies. You are gelling and doing a great job, and I was very excited to be at the last academic affairs meeting. Some of the things that we did make decisions on that we had talked about previously, but we have not identified a person, but identified 9 slots for faculty leads, which the academy leaders will be moving on that process of selecting those folks. We already have an approved stipend pay in our last extra duty pay, so we already have a category there for faculty leads, so there's nothing new that we have to vote on. We discussed a new action plan that Nikki and the ladies will discuss in a few minutes. We had a very thoughtful discussion on the Dean of Academics versus Dean of Students, and so we will discuss that in closed session, but I appreciate the information they presented to give us more insight into what is needed at the school. We decided to table the Learning Lab as a new initiative before we solidify some of the things they're going to outline in the action plan, which focus, on our core component, which is our teachers and what is happening within the classroom. So I'm very excited to let you all hear about that. And so we had a very productive meeting, and I appreciate all their hard work. And one of the things that they presented, after they present to us, they will be sharing with their community in their academies, was the 1920 action plan. So take it away, ladies.
So, and just to be clear, because when we presented this to staff, there was a little bit of nervousness about calling it an action plan, because that tends to indicate that that this is because we're in trouble kind of thing. So we're calling it a plan of action.
Okay.
I don't know, it was a concern, but I just want to be clear that this isn't because we're in trouble.
They get very worried about things that are not things to worry about.
But we're not in trouble. This is just our plan we're working really hard, the three of us in the academies, to align what we're doing so that the message that happens in primary, intermediate, and secondary is the same as much as we possibly can. So this action plan is slightly different for each academy only in the data that's presented on this front page, only in some of the academic goals that were set on the final page, but within that there's 3 key actions. One key action is to grow staff capacity to provide high quality instruction, and then establishing a high performance culture. Those are our top 2, and then evaluating the master schedule, which we already talked about a little bit here tonight, to include cougar time issues that we have. So in doing that, within those key actions, there are indicators of success. And then there are specific actions that we're going to take as leaders to make sure that we achieve those goals. And so we want to make sure that what we're doing is effective, and the way you do that is by measuring what you're looking at. So I call it, we are inspecting what we expect. So when you look at high quality instruction, the research is very clear that high quality instruction is one of the best predictors for student academic success. Within that, at our last professional development day, there are specific components to instruction that lead to classroom success, and that is learning objectives, purposeful instruction, and student engagement. So we did training on that on our last professional development day. As we have done observations in classrooms, you also got a copy of this, the Advanced Ed Elliott tool. So we are in classrooms frequently. Did we give?
I don't think you.
Oh, did I not give them out? I made copies, but I didn't give them out.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's the thought that counts. That's what I'm told. So, and you'll see when you get this, you'll see that there are specific strands that you look for when you go into a classroom. So if we're talking about purposeful instruction, one of the things that we're looking at are, do students have differentiated learning opportunities and activities that meet their needs? So that's one of the things that we're looking for, and we score them based on proficiency level in that area. All teachers receive feedback every time we go into the classroom. So one of our indicators of success is that 90% of our teachers get a 3 or higher on this Elliott tool in the areas of engagement and purposeful instruction and lesson objectives. Do you have the strand one too? Is that the one you're giving out now? Okay.
Thank you. So just to clarify, because I asked this question at meetings, so this is in addition to their formal DPI teacher evaluation. So this is an additional evaluation tool that we're implementing to ensure that the high quality instruction is evident or growing, at least within the classroom.
And we like this tool because it focuses on what students are doing, whereas the NESIS focuses on what the teachers are doing. And obviously the students are the ones doing the learning, so we want to focus on that. And we've taken out the strands on that other sheet of paper. It has the strands that specifically apply to purposeful instruction, lesson objectives, and student engagement. So we don't want to overwhelm teachers with all of these things, although they're all important. We've identified there's 11 strands that we are focusing on when we go into the classroom, so they know what we're looking for, and we can stay focused on our feedback and what we're looking for in the classroom.
I'm very excited about this, and I think it's very important to understand the distinction between teaching and learning, because sometimes the teacher focuses solely on what they're doing, but, you know, as my boss says, if the students don't learn, did you actually teach? So, so I'm excited that we are shifting the focus and having an additional tool to measure learning.
Yes, I am too. We're very excited.
Yeah, it's provided a lot better feedback just for the teachers too, and the conversations. With NESIS, there's so much, if you're not the direct supervisor, that you can't, like I can observe if Dr. Swartzlander's staff are attending PLCs regularly. I can't observe that, but I can walk through with the same tool and effectively rate student engagement based on the aligning we've done. It's a lot better.
And the very exciting thing to me is walking around campus and seeing teachers excited to be implementing what it is that we taught and went over on the 20th, and that they are really embracing this work because it is work that impacts teaching and learning every day. It doesn't feel like it's the extra thing. It feels like it's feeding what it is that they do. So it has been very, very positive and positively receptive and implemented.
And it's nice to have common language.
Yeah.
Right, that's very important. You know, when we talked about high performance culture, we did a training on that as well. And I didn't bring it with me tonight, but there's a school culture rubric that we shared. And we had, you know, teachers kind of evaluate where they thought we were with our school culture. And one of the things that the feedback that I got from that, so many of them said that they appreciated that we were working towards having a common vision and common goals and trying to unify all 3 academies to the best of our ability. So I think they're very excited about that as well. And it's been really fun to have teachers run up to me in the hallway and be like, oh my gosh, I tried this engagement strategy today and it worked, it really worked. Like, I loved it, it was so fun. And the kids are having fun with it too. So it's been a lot of fun. You know, but we talked about this week as well. The biggest thing is, okay, we presented this, but as leaders, now we have to make sure that that is our focus every single day. So I know all 3 of us, every single day, we're going into every classroom to find out what is our learning objective for today, so that they know that we're going to continue to look for that.
Right.
And that's not just, this isn't just a piece of paper and it goes away, like happens so often in school systems. So we've been very intentional about following up on what we have said we were going to do.
So my, communication is one of our standing agenda items for academic affairs. And so I think my understanding was you were sending this out to your individual academies, because the first 2 are the same for every academy, explaining the observation tool a little bit, and then giving them the different goals.
To families.
To families.
Right. We haven't done that yet. I sent out that executive summary and just wanted to make sure it made sense and I was on the right track before we did that. But yes, so we'll put it in family-friendly language so they understand what all of these acronyms and stuff mean and what it really means for kids in the classroom.
So are those evaluations for, I don't know how to pronounce that acronym, Elliott? Is the idea that that's done like twice a semester, or is it random, or is it cross done by you guys, ladies, across academies, or?
So right now we're sticking to doing this within our own academy. Brittany has a lot of teachers, so we haven't really talked about helping her out with that, but we will. The expectation that we have set out is that every teacher will be observed minimum of once a month. Most of the time it will be the Elliott tool, but there are some months that we need to do the NESIS assessment. So for the month of November, we're going to do our first round of evaluations using the NESIS system. But once a month, they will get an official evaluation every single day. They are getting visits from us in the classroom. And so, for example, today I didn't do one of these, but I left some Post-it notes in some teachers' rooms of some suggestions that I had. So, so they see us every day in the classroom, but to put it on paper once a month is the minimum.
So it'd be good, like, maybe midpoint of the year, we could just get a readout of where we're tracking towards the 75% of things.
Yes. So Amanda developed a great Excel spreadsheet for us to use, so we can put scores in and see where our averages are every single month, and that will help drive our professional development as well. So we can use that data to show staff, okay, we're doing a really good job with engagement, but we're still really struggling with purposeful instruction. So next PD, we're going to focus on purposeful instruction because that's where we need the most support at this point based on the data.
Any other questions or comments? One of the other items from academic affairs that we talked about briefly, and I think you're addressing it a little with the master schedule committee, is really talking about space utilization. And that kind of ties into graduation requirements, catalog, all those sorts of things, where we are looking at how are we using our space based on where we are now, how we would use the space based on maybe new things that are going to happen, as well as getting some data, demographic data in terms of enrollment trends in this particular area, which is a huge feeder for the school, so that we are doing more strategic enrollment management because we are ADM, that is our revenue. So that's why I'm asking, let's look at the 3-year trends. Let's start seeing what direction we're going in, and then what do we need to do differently, even in terms of maybe marketing to other parts of the county or parts of the state, if that is where there's more school-age children, as you see billboards for charter schools not near the charter school because they may recognize that has to be a draw for a feeder. So I think they started to look at some of that. I was going to pull some data from a consultant for JCC because they just did the Smithfield, Selma region in the western part of the county to just get some basic demographic information over the next 3 years. So I think those are things we have to start looking at as more charter schools are coming in, different Johnson County schools are doing different things, and so we have to look at the market and what kind of competition we would have for the same students and what we may need to do differently, and how are we best utilizing our space here that we have. So.
And to piggyback on that, I'm assuming, but I want to make sure that I understand with the master schedule committee, are you all looking at that in conjunction with the space utilization so that we make sure, like you were saying, there's some classes in the spring that have low enrollment, and figuring out how we can maximize the use of our space with the master schedule? Perfect.
So, yes.
Okay.
I don't know which comes first, the chicken or the egg, but I think we have to look at, in my mind, we have to look at really streamlining the master schedule, and then we can utilize the space that we have in creative ways. So I don't know if it's about maximizing the space and then drawing a master schedule off of that. I'm not sure that makes sense for student learning.
Right.
But I think streamlining the master schedule and really looking at that will help us with our space utilization, because I think we might have too much going on.
And I think, as a charter school, that we can be very innovative. I'm waiting for something tremendously different in terms of you can have different ways to deliver instruction that may fit better for this emerging group of students who are very technology driven. So we have a growing number of people who do have live instruction from another school. We could have hybrid courses. We could have completely online courses for some things. I think hybrid is a really great mix and definitely sets our students up for delivery methods that they're going to see in college, and so they're going in with really strong skill sets of how to navigate content in an online environment. So there's lots of very interesting things I think we can be completely, open to.
I just want to make sure that we're streamlining and we're not piecemealing.
Right.
Which is what I feel like we're doing right
Yes.
now, is we're doing a lot of piecemealing. So I want to make sure that we're doing it very systemically.
Right.
And doing it in a way that makes sense, but making sure that all of these different online sources, that we're really using it systemically and what makes sense.
Well, and what I would, again, it sounds like we're thinking along the same lines, but what I would love to see is, as you streamline, I would love to see by streamlining, what are we, quote, giving up or losing, and how many students would be impacted based on, it may only be 1 or 2, it may be 5.
Right.
And then we can look at some of creative ways, leveraging outside resources. I love, by the way, that Science and Math is coming in to talk to the freshmen and sophomores this week. I'm so excited about that. But I think that there are, as we've talked about in academic affairs, so many opportunities for creative solutions. And I think you're right that we've been piecemealing it, and I think people have been afraid that if we, by streamlining, they hear we're going to lose things.
Right.
And so I just think as long as we're careful that in the process we track what we might be losing and figure out, do we really need, is it okay if we lose those? Or if not, how can we creatively, make sure that students still have access to what they need and want. So I love it.
So I would think that what you would do is consider what the need is and what fits the class the best. Not expect that you'll do that, not just select something innovative for the sake of being innovative.
Right.
Once after you determine what that need is, you can then look at modeling what the capacity, and figuring out some way of modeling capacity against the schedule based on what you want to do, what you need to do. So.
Well, and I think what's been happening is that there are a few students who have wanted that we are trying to make sure that everyone has access to everything that they want, and I'm not sure whether that's possible really. But at the same time, I think that you're right that we need to make sure that we know what our needs are, that we stay in our lane, and then we look beyond that for those innovative places to try to help with the students. Who really
As well as look at emerging, 21st century competencies, and are we really teaching our students the skill sets that they need to be successful, whether they're going straight to career or into higher ed. That is what we should be packing their backpack with. And so we really need to start, doing some forecasting and listening to industry and higher ed, who, have a lot of conversation about what they want to see from students, and they're talking in elementary school. And so now they should be learning this. And so are we addressing those needs? So we are actually exiting students with the skills necessary to be successful.
Yeah, and part of the seminar, I think we might be calling it bridge program, whatever. A lot of those strands talk about making sure we focus on critical thinking, information literacy, and problem solving. So as specific skills that we are teaching kids to do beginning in 8th grade. And so we don't do a lot of that in our plus thing, whatever it's called, talks about 21st century skills with collaboration and problem solving and doing all of those things, but we're not very intentional about teaching it to kids. So part of the bridge program will address some of that as well.
So one point I've brought this up a couple times before, and I'll kind of keep bringing it up because I want to make sure we stay on the same page about this. So if I look at this, one, I love the accountability that you put in here with measurements across the academies. I think as a board, we're going to have to go back and if these are individual targets set at the academy level, what does that mean from a roll-up? And we just need to have a discussion at some point about, are we carrying forward the bonus target based on some cumulative roll-up results? Because that's what we did last year on school with grade. So
we do need to revisit that, as well as the previous targets that I'm not sure everything's aligned. Or these are in addition, but you previously had presented.
I think it's a subset of it.
A subset, okay.
I look at the numbers, I see every one of these were in some form referenced in that master
Okay.
list that were presented before that we as a board approved, actually. And I raised at the time, we need to revisit that and really spend some thought time about, there's a master list of 30 variables. We don't have a formula for a composite, and now you've got a set of 3 academies that have some subset of those variables now documented on paper that they're going to hit as a per academy level. That's disconnected from an aggregate.
Yeah,
'cause you
and I
can't-
don't know, do you all feel that those are still where you want to be?
So when you look at the data, it's how are we going to at least start by growing from where we are? Just
Right.
saying everybody's got to be here is not feasible when you look at specific targets and you see the overall K2 proficiency average for reading was way below that target. We've got to start somewhere. The thing we can't factor in is growth. I think it's an 80-20 model that they do. So that growth model, I mean, that's something that we can kind of play around with. I think proficiency has to be the first target. If you target proficiency, the growth will come with it. If you actually aggregate the data and you look at the scores and see based on the fluctuation of the target, like the state's targets, who's going to fall on, not proficient, where are the students lying at with proficiency? That work you can't set a target on. That's continuing, look at your data, readjusting instruction and moving the needle that way. That's where that has to, and that's EVOS and our own breakdown of data too.
I don't know the answer to it,
Yeah.
it's something we need to come to a consensus on what it is, because otherwise we're gonna be middle of spring semester and not know what
Well,
it is.
yeah, and I think it's all muddy because you're talking about the targets that Susan presented, right, that we all approved.
Yeah.
And you're talking about EOG report card, right, student, which was part of the targets that Susan
Right.
presented. But hence the issue is that it's all.
That's what I'm saying. Are you guys feel like you are familiar enough with the target she presented that was approved by the board in all those different categories?
I'm just speaking for the targets that kind of hit in my realm. Mine are only EOG specific. I know the ACT and all of
Right.
those types of things,
Okay.
those have to be in aligned vision where mine funnel up to that. But again, I mean, those targets, I know Nikki has been brought up to speed on those. We've got to look and see, are they measurable based on what we're seeing as we go through, again, from the assessment check-in.
So that's where we're starting, so if you all want to comment on that, that would have to, because it was board approved, have to come back to the board if anything needs to change.
And we can talk about it at the academic
Yeah.
affairs committee if you have more questions and if we want to revisit and look at these in conjunction with those and all of that, just to make sure that everything's in alignment. But these are great.
It was just the issue is when you
Sure.
look at that sheet, there's like 15 variables on there.
Right.
Right, oh yeah.
You can't have 15 variables when you're looking at an aggregate number. It either has to be a weighted formula mathematically as an engineer. So,
But that had nothing to do with the loan thing.
well, no, that was supposed to be the basis by which someone would make a determination. I mean, at some point, we've got to either say we're not going to do it, or we've got to pick something that we're going to stick to.
Right.
But I think that kind of points out the flaw in our whole loan system, is that it's too simplistic as far as spreading it across.
It wasn't, I slightly disagree, it wasn't too simplistic, it was the variables that you measure to move your aggregate target are all of these things. And I promise you, if you don't do any of these things, the aggregate target will not move. In fact, it'll probably go down again. So I'm not sure the problem was with the aggregate target. I think the fact that we didn't have these that actually move that target. But when these other things.
Well, it's kind of what Brittany's saying, so this is more the growth thing, and
That's right.
if you grow and get to proficiency, the other needle should move.
That's got to be the first
Yeah.
baseline. We've got to stop so to speak, the bleed. If we're not meeting proficiency targets and we're not meeting growth, that has to be the first overall thing. If we're staying stagnant with our ACT scores, that's where we have to target first. Once we target that and we focus on instruction and moving the needle that way, then we're going to grow and be able to, again,
Right, and so we may need to socialize that with everyone, because obviously everyone only looks at the report card grade.
Yeah.
Which, you know, there may need to be another year where we're growing and hitting proficiencies, but that still is not enough to like tip the needle to the next, to the, you know, up to the B or whatever. But not to say that the other piece is not important, because if you don't move the engine, you know, that way, you're obviously never gonna get to them, so.
Well, and we might be able to look at this while we talk about the incentive plan, that it's also, you know, one of the things that we've been looking at in the academic affairs committee is how do we want to incentivize teachers and staff, and you know, because there are some teachers who don't have EOG scores and, you know, all of those things. So I think your point's really important. But I also think that there's a possibility, and just be thinking about this, about whether or not some of the new format that you have for evaluating teachers, that we might be able to incorporate some of that data, since you're already collecting it and it's focused on student learning and engagement. And that might be a good needle that we could use, I don't know, either in the short term or in conjunction with EOG, you know, with the school report card and things like that. But yeah, I think that we need to think about that as we're talking about that, the incentive plan, because to your point, it may not move fast enough. For us to see the results. But anyway, just something to think about, if that makes sense, I don't know.
Yeah, if you hit 100% of the targets in each of these, and the aggregate doesn't move, then this was wrong. Right?
Or it's just gonna take longer. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the.
So just for those that, especially you guys that read, what we talked about 2 years ago was that the first year of the revised compensation plan was supposed to be a cumulative organizational goal, such that it was about everybody working together collectively towards a goal. There was supposed to be a second wave of that implementation in year 2, which factored in what we would call at the time was an individual performance factor. There was an institutional goal, and then there would be an individual performance, which is kind of like some of the things you said. We never really got solid on this one, so that one just got pushed. But some point we need to be clear on that. I would say we need to set a goal of having this done by December at the latest, and then next year we need to have it done before school starts. I just don't want to keep kicking this can.
Yeah, so Mr. Dunn, maybe I should know this already, but what you're talking about, year 1 implementation or year 2, where can I find that information? Because I don't.
We would have approved it in the board minutes. We can go look back at which board meeting that was, but it would have been in the board minutes.
So there wasn't something that was developed?
It was,
Like we talked about it, but we didn't develop something?
There was a framework. No, we
We set a target, we didn't.
We set a target.
Yeah, we set a target last year for school report card grade.
Okay,
That there was
right.
if I remember right, the target was 75 with a stretch of 77. My issue is that should have been done before school started, because we should have known enough about the data to set it. We didn't, and we set it in December. It's too late, we're halfway through the year. Right? Now, the compensation implementation was summer before last, if I remember right. Yes, it would have been, not this last summer, but the summer before. We talked about revising how we did compensation, and for the first time in school history, we set a measurable school target linked to school report card grade that we would base bonuses on for teachers and staff. It was a school-wide thing. That's what we said.
And that was shared with staff, and they knew that was potential?
Yes.
We didn't meet that goal, so nobody's getting the bonus, really?
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Right?
That's correct.
Okay, so,
The individual performance part, like so like if your institution met a goal, everybody is eligible because we as an institution made it.
right,
And then there was a second level of we never even got to any implementation discussions about individual. So
Okay.
that was never done. There was no details around that because it was never done.
okay, so,
And we kind of just barely talked about it in that long list at academic affairs, that maybe just give bonuses to clearly people who are hitting it out of the park.
Right.
But we haven't.
so maybe we'll talk about that Thursday. But as you know, I've worked in 3 different systems where we did those things.
That's right.
So if you want me to present a few different ways, a few different ideas, there's
Well,
good, there's
think-
positive and negative to every
That's exactly
one.
right. There's no perfect compensation
Right,
policy
right.
ever.
There's not.
Right, but I think we gotta pick one that emphasizes we've got to grow and perform better.
Yep.
Right, and whatever your opinions are as leaders about some of the options of that. I mean, what we did say in finance was that there was no bonus for this year because we didn't meet the target. I mean, that's what we did, that's what we approved, it's whatever. If there's some feeling that there wants to be a second proposal that's come based on what we learned and we didn't meet our target, that can be brought to the board as a proposal, right, based on last year's performance of what happened.
And I think you're saying that's part of the bigger
Yeah.
teacher incentive retention plan we talked about as well.
And I also think that as we move our focus as an institution holistically from the three of you and the board to being more data-driven, that I think some of this is going to become very apparent, and I think it's really important that you keep reminding us that we need to do that, because otherwise...
I'm the finance guy.
Yeah,
I gotta have a target
exactly.
number.
I think it's really, really, really important, but perhaps the conversation could be started in academic affairs to come up with what kind of recommendation we might want to bring based on the three of you and the experience that you have, and then bring that to the board, because I think that what we want is we want our teachers and staff to feel valued, and we want them to know that we want their compensation to reflect that, but we also want it to encourage them to continue to grow and develop and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, don't you think academic affairs is a good place to start the conversation?
And when you have an intense focus on instruction,
Yes.
that's data-driven.
Yes.
And evaluated frequently, that's the basis of everything else.
Exactly.
So if you don't have that, your academic achievement isn't going to go where you want it to go anyway,
Right.
regardless of the target that you set. So
And you're not sure what you're evaluating.
exactly.
Right, and so that's exactly what I was trying to say, is now that we know what we're evaluating and where we're starting, I think that some of this is going to become clear as we move forward.
Good conversation. Okay, finance?
So we had in finance, it was a pretty straightforward meeting. A couple action items came out of it. One is we did the transfer of the lunch money. I don't have the exact number, but what we're doing, just so everybody's aware, all the money for the lunch program as well as the capital campaign that flows through PayPal, it goes into one PayPal account. We've worked with KS Bank to actually have that account linked to both operating accounts. We have a capital campaign account, and then we have the main operating account. So what we've agreed to from a fiscal procedures perspective is once a month, Amanda and Brad will do a reconciliation of that, the money that was taken in for the lunch program as well as in capital campaign. And then once a month, we'll just make a transfer into the operating account as well as the capital campaign account. So that's just a procedural thing that we got alignment on, and that's super helpful because it takes 30 seconds and I can do the transfer to the accounts as treasurer. That works really well. We have the budget in front of us, no major updates to the budget because like you heard in the executive director report, the state has still not passed their budget. So just standard protocol, we just need to approve the budget that's in the packet.
Rodney, when you say capital campaign contributions, are you referring to
Donations.
PayPal and those type of things?
So for example, if we have some donors that go into PayPal and they set up like $100 a month recurring donation to the school.
Okay.
That's a donation. It's just called in fact, did I get the name of the account wrong?
Yeah.
We changed it one
Call
time.
it capital campaign.
Which one?
The Make It See Us Great.
Yeah, Make It See Us Great. We didn't change the name of it.
Oh.
I was referencing the name of the account
Yeah,
on the
okay.
account.
Yeah,
So,
because the term capital makes me think. So what are we calling it?
I think it's Make It See Us Great.
Okay, thank you.
His account name with KS Bank. It's just the fact that all the money's going into PayPal and it's coming from two sources. It's coming from the lunch program and as well as people's donations. So once a month we need to deposit those into the correct bank account from PayPal. So anyway, we just need to approve the budget as presented because there's really no changes away from the state. We'll just need that
Entertain
motion.
a motion.
I move to approve the budget.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
One last thing I did want to make note of is, so I did send an email to the board as an FYI that there was a list of items that was kind of pre-vetted a little bit that Susan had presented at a previous board meeting. That had a list of a lot of activities. It was really kind of the kitchen sink of things across the school. I'd like to have the academy leaders review that list, kind of do a first pass of prioritization across those. And I had also sent an email to the Academic Affairs Committee because that committee had kind of put us on forward notice that there were 7 or 8 items that they may have some financials associated with. And we've got to kind of figure out how we're going to bring all these things together. And one of the things we talked about in the Finance Committee, we'd like to in November, at the November Finance Committee, if possible, have everybody submit those dollar budgetary items so that then in the November meeting, at the board meeting, we could come from finance and say, hey, here's a holistic ask financially across the programs, from the building to the academic affairs to additional things on that list, so that we can we can have a healthy discussion that looks horizontally across the needs and wants of the school. So if you've
That's
got
the
those-
list I gave to them.
yeah, so I'd like to sit down and just facilitate a discussion with them that says, okay, how do you want to box it in? How do you want to prioritize it? And we can take that stuff in the finance committee and then take the stuff in the building campaign as well. And then we can all sit down and look and say, okay, it's $2 million worth of ask and we got $1 million or whatever the numbers are already. So we'd like to get that done by November board meeting.
Okay.
So you would like academy leaders, and is this a fiscal year budget
This
ask?
is to look at the list that was socialized from Susan. They need to review that list. They need to put priorities associated with it. And the high priority ones from their perspective, there needs to be dollar figures assigned to them.
It was like a whole list
Yeah.
that Susan had put together of just things she thought the school needed.
Okay.
And so then we gave that to them at Academic Affairs, and they were going to look at it and put it, it's just a list. It's like it's not in any order. There's no dollar figures associated.
And the main focus is, and Benji made a good point, is like, some of these things you have to put in like a time frame.
Right, yeah.
Like some of them are like, between now and the end of the year. Well, that may fit within our current year's budget, right, depending on how it falls out. If it's a 3-year goal, then we're going to need to stage it over like a 3-year period.
Right. Who, I mean, did somebody have quotes on some of these things? Or it was just like a list?
I didn't see quotes, but I think the
Some of
best
it
thing
was
to do
like
is.
phone system stuff.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
for like my stuff, I was doing 10-year projections.
Okay.
I know where mine are and I know about what the estimated cost is.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's reasonable that we can sit down and get it to a top 5, maybe 10, and we can get some swagger numbers pretty close to us.
Okay.
That's it. Fine.
We're gonna do facilities.
Facilities.
Under finance?
Yeah.
Nothing, okay. Resource?
One more thing with finance, last meeting you said that you all will present your slate of members.
We didn't get to that one.
Didn't
That
get it,
action
okay.
item's still pending. And also, the action item's still pending on follow-up. I'm going to follow up with PPI on the reserve funds usage. I didn't get that one.
Thank you.
But I think that the score goes back to November 27th, 2018 meeting. That's the meeting.
The score.
The score, we're trying to.
For the bonuses. That was in September. That's when we were informed of the,
And
because she
voted,
just got the,
and then voted on it. This was looking for the 20,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about which board meeting it was?
Yeah.
Oh, which one was it?
it was November 27th, 2018.
Yes, so if you look at the meeting minutes for the November 2018 board meeting, it's the minutes are in there where we set the targets.
Oh,
The school report card targets. But I want to make sure you're clear.
Thank you.
That was discussion around the school report card target.
Yeah.
There was a separate set of discussions about what is News Charter School's compensation plan.
Okay.
That is performance-based.
Okay.
That's what it was not a tenure-based, it was, we wanted to inject a performance because we were not moving up.
Right,
So we
right,
were
okay.
changing the conversation. So
Got it.
you ladies have ideas around how to structure or change that or
I
whatever.
got some ideas.
I like ideas.
I'll send the file.
Yeah.
Thank you. Resource? Budget, okay, board development.
Just a couple of things. I need a committee.
She needs a committee.
I need a committee. If anyone interested in serving on the board development committee, if not, I'll start naming names.
Are you willing to chair?
Yes, I'm chairing the board development committee.
Okay, so if anyone remember any suggestions, even from the staff who want to, could be teachers, could be community members, if anyone wants to serve on board development, which kind of explain what board development committee is.
So essentially, we're looking at the bylaws, making sure that which is actually the biggest thing right now, we're doing the nominations for new board members. I think also part of that is providing training opportunities or education things for other board members as well. We don't need a whole lot, only kind of as needed. There are things kind of going on. Right now, I need somebody so we can go ahead and get our bylaws going because there's some edits that need to be made to that. I've already started redlining them, but I need to go ahead and get some folks on that as well. And then the nominating committee for, we could probably start in January as part of and that's a separate committee under board development. Committee board members. And that's another thing to kind of be thinking about. I know it's early, but then we've got the holidays coming up, so be thinking about in January if we want to open the floor for.
Can I just ask too, from a bylaw perspective, how many members can the board have?
I think it's 11.
I knew that we weren't full. Okay.
I would suggest a parent of a senior here at the school, Mr. Jimmy Moore. I'd be a good member of that committee. I understand you've got some experience. He may choose to serve. I don't know if he's done anything.
Well, at least for tonight's purposes, I would at least like to go ahead and get some other board members on the committee as well. So I'm going to nominate.
If you want.
Yep, I'll nominate Paul and Nicole.
Sure.
I hear you have some experience as well.
A little bit.
Can I be on that?
Yeah, and I
Can
will
I be on
have,
that?
Yes.
I will have to say, as chair, we do have a rather small board. I know everyone has but people are going to need to help out with some other areas because I literally cannot be at every committee or go to every special meeting. And so I will encourage our board members, everyone, to really help out, even if it's outside of what you normally kind of do for some of these areas. Board development's a great committee that Michelle is right. There's not typically lots of meetings or stuff to do, but
And I'm the coolest committee chair.
so we do. So half of the board is already officers, so that puts us on executive, and then other committees, and so other people, we might need some assistance with some of the other
I dare say
things.
some of us do even more than the executive committee does.
Well, that could be true. That could be very
Maybe we need to define what
Well,
we do.
then we may want to consider that as we move into January and we think about nominating committee and open, board members and so forth. So thank you, Michelle, I appreciate it.
So do we need official appointments for those other three individuals to be?
That's so Paul.
Nikki, Paul, and Nicole.
Okay, yes. So can you give the slate to Nicole?
Yes.
And then she can.
The nominations for the board development committee are Nicole, Paul, and then Nikki.
A motion?
We have to vote on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we
Okay.
have.
The slate.
I make a motion to accept the slate as presented.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you so much for your willingness to serve. Okay, any old business? I will ask, I think Paul has probably been trying to finalize the new grievance committee and has been out for comment from the board, so if we'll just have like.
Further comment, because there would need to be two grievances, one for employees and one for non-employees.
For the families.
Right,
Okay.
that's the path we're taking, so that's what I need to do some thinking about. Give your final answer.
The final answer on whether we need to, or the final comment on the one?
Yeah.
Final comment on the.
Including if we need to, so.
And what is your thought on, this is my thought that as someone who has to deal with grievance, the student family grievance policy is a little vague and not really, I think we need to tighten that up. Now that could be a school policy that you all create, and the grievance policy that we're talking about is when it gets to us, our process for someone doing. But Susan and I did go over that, and I was like, it's just really confusing when I read it, and I think it's, I gave her some samples, me, I'm always pulling some samples. So I just think that the student grievance policy needs a look and perhaps a redesign. And so we have done a redesign on the board grievance policy that.
Based on what's in the parent handbook right now that's posted?
Yes, I mean, I've had several
Basing it on?
parents tell me it's confusing, the form, I mean, it's just,
Oh, there's
it reads almost if that most minor thing could be under these, can go from suspension or from a minor, you're in the principal's office to suspension, and like, there's no categories, because everything can't fall under those two things. Something minor may only have this set of discipline, and then another category for these kind of offenses, but it reads like everything's all in just a whole list of offenses, and then you have all of the possibilities. So parents like, so would I get my child be expelled because they did this minor thing? Because there's no distinction, it's just a big list. And so it's several parents who have gone through who felt that the policy was unclear.
The student grievance, though, could eventually come to us in an appeal, correct?
It could, and that's why,
So
as
then
you're
it's a
saying,
board
that
policy.
there's a little bit of connection to when they reference from their last point, would reference, if you want to escalate it, then you have to start picking up on our policy.
Yeah, I would think that it would go back somewhat and be rooted in what the school policy, because if there's any kind of error in the school policy, it could mess it up like that's to the board.
Right.
That maybe, I'd be glad to.
So you can even share.
I'd love to chat with you about it, and it's been sent out, I think, but I can send it again.
You sent it to the administrators?
I think I sent it to the whole.
Okay, so anyway, I would like that wrapped up, so we have November meeting, so that will be it, we'll vote on it, the final. So if you have any additional comments, I know there were comments about days. You could tell, but it's been there, I mean, he sent it before, so we need some, I know there were a few comments, but this will be your last chance to comment.
Just to clarify, we're not necessarily talking about the student grievances being, that policy being changed.
No, I think that's a school policy,
Okay, just making sure.
but there are things, like if someone gets.
No, what we're doing, let me be very clear, I'm sorry. Let me be very clear, what we've done is we split up the grievances. Based on the model that we looked at, we split the grievances so that employee grievances were covered under a separate policy than student grievances. Before, they were both under the same policy. And what we're doing is we split those out. And, when we adopted, we had a format that you brought, we split those out.
Right.
And then we have then there would have to be a separate one for students. And if there is anything that a student grievance could involve and come back to the board, then it's not a school, the way I look at it, it's not a procedure, it's still a policy.
Well, what I'm referring to is not necessarily the student grievance, it's the student disciplinary action, where the last stage of that could reference, if you still don't like what just happened to you, you come to the board. So that's what I'm saying needs to be a little tightened up. And to make sure that the last escalation stage is that you refer them to our new student policy. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other old business? New business? And Michelle, would you like to make a motion that we go into closed session per, is this incorrect? Because or shall we not always use 6? We
We
might
should
have
not
to.
always use 6.
We should not always use
You may
6.
use the 143-318.11
A.
A, I believe it's.
But as Michelle sent out, there are,
Yes, it is A.
how many are there?
There are 10.
10 different reasons why we could go into closed session, and we need to cite the appropriate one where we're going into closed session. So for tonight, we have the appropriate.
So, well, for tonight, I move that we go into closed session for personal and administrative discussion pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A.
It's still 6, general personnel.
Is that corresponding with the?
A is this, what's permitted, then you have to reference the number. Because it says general personnel. Oh, no.
So yes, it would be, for tonight's purposes, it would be 6.
So that allows them to bring any personnel requests or?
It's just announcing that what our purpose for,
Why-
law tells us for what
Yes,
purposes we can go into closed session, and it just states for what purpose we are going into
I
closed
got
session.
you.
Like some of them might have been 3 previously.
Yes, that's
Yes,
correct.
Yes, okay. And might tonight also cover 3? Do we have to name every number that
It would-
applies?
It would be better, but if we say, it would be better if we did. Yes, so if there are others.
It's like
Can we just say we'll do 10 every time?
Can we just say A? Can we just leave it at
She just said
A?
you have to have the number.
Can we just leave it at A?
I think we can leave it at A.
Okay.
Oh, okay, good.
If I find out different, I'll let you know.
Second.
Thank you. All right. Any discussion? Okay, so we will adjourn for a closed session. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Is that something we are?